Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, August 20th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 11 days, the game against Michigan in 102 days. Today, you're going to be hearing from Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. We got a chance to talk to him late last week, and there's been a bunch of other stuff going on, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk about that stuff on this show, so we're going to be doing that today. We're going to start with the big news that broke at the end of last week. Ohio State has its starting quarterback. That starting quarterback is Will Howard. Not exactly a huge surprise to anyone who's been following this thing real closely. But what was it that made Will Howard the guy who was pretty clearly the right decision for Ohio State to be their starting quarterback this year?
I think Will's earned it. And we grade everything. Obviously he graded out the highest at the position. There's a lot of data-driven information with that in terms of decisions that he makes on the field, running offense. And it's just as critical to be that guy in the run game as it is in the pass game in terms of what we ask the quarterback to do here. So I think he's really worked extremely hard in the offseason, from the end of spring ball on April 13th to now. He's made great strides. But, we gave him a plan over the summer to work on, and he took it and ran with it. So, where he is now is pretty impressive. And the one thing that he has is he has experience. He's been in a huddle. He's been in a huddle in a lot of games. He's been in a huddle in big games. So, this isn't new to him. Columbus is new to him, but playing college football isn't new to him. So I think that experience, really started to shine through here during camp, and, excited to see where he goes with this.
There's obviously a lot that goes into playing starting quarterback for a team of Ohio State's caliber. So when Chip Kelly is evaluating guys and trying to make that decision, what is the top factor in his mind when he's trying to piece through all the different pieces of information he's got?
Yeah, I think decision-making is at the top of the list for all quarterbacks, just because that's what the game is. It's are you putting us in the right play? Are you getting us out of a bad play? Are you making the decisions to throw the check down and try to, instead of forcing it into coverage? It's not just who has the strongest arm, but the decision-making process has always been at the top of the list. And then after that, it would be repetitive accuracy and then athleticism. And I think Will has all three of those. His ability to help us in the run game is going to be a really big plus for us this year. Because he's not just a guy that's going to hand it off back there. I think people are going to have to respect him with the ability to run. Again, part of his work ethic in the offseason, I mentioned it the other day, he ran 22 miles an hour this summer at 236 pounds. So, there is a threat of a run from that position. So you're going to have to defend 11. Some teams when you play against them, you have to defend 10 because the quarterback's not going to hurt you in the run game, but Will can if you do. Now, there's not going to be a ton of quarterback-driven run where we're just snapping the ball to him like he's Tim Tebow and just ramming him up in there. But there are certain packages that we have for our quarterbacks to make sure that we're keeping defenses honest. And I think, as you said, decision-making, repetitive accuracy, and that athleticism, I think Will has all three of those.
The quarterback is obviously the position that gets the most attention on the team and in terms of positional battles this year, but it might not be the biggest question heading into the season for Ohio State on offense. That is probably the offensive line. Feels like they've got four of those positions pretty much settled. The right guard position still a little bit up in the air, but they've been looking at a lot of different guys in a lot of different positions and trying to figure out good quality depth there. So which of the guys in the offensive line have really caught Chip Kelly's eye this fall?
I think we've been forced because of the illness that's gone through. Jimmy spent some time out. Donnie spent some time out. Fitz has spent some time out. Carson's been out for a little bit. Luke's been out for a little bit. So I think Zen and Austin are two guys that have really stepped up and kind of caught your eye that, maybe not as much as it was in the spring, but they're taking advantage of their reps. And I think, one of the things you always preach as a coach, and sometimes it's coach speak, don't count your reps, make your reps count. But those two guys are two guys that have really made their reps count. I think Tegra, because Tegra's taken every snap since, hasn't missed a day. He's made his reps count. Seth has made his reps count. So, those four guys have probably been the most consistent just because the other guys have been out, so it's been in and out, in and out, in and out. So, but those four guys have kind of stood out for us.
That offensive line has kind of been up against it a little bit this fall. Yes, they have been dealing with that virus, that funky virus, as Ryan Day keeps calling it, going through that room and pulling guys out of practice here and there. But they also have to go against that defensive line every day, and the defensive line going to be one of the best in the nation. So how has that offensive line held up given all of that?
Iron sharpens iron, when you got to go against Jack and JT and Talik and Kenyatta in that group every day, you can't help but get better. And I think those guys have, again, have taken advantage of those opportunities that they've gotten, and you can see growth, from the spring until now. So, I think the one thing that we know is it's going to be a long season. So you got to develop those guys. You're not going into the season with 5 linemen. It's just not going to happen when you're playing a 16-game season. So when you're going to play that many games, you got to have as much depth as you can. And I think because those guys, you never wish an illness or a person to miss practice on anybody, but there are sometimes some benefits of it. And the benefits of it is those guys that gotten extra reps in these last week or so have really benefited from it.
One player who seems like he has gotten on a lot of radars this fall with some strong play during camp is Austin Siereveld. We have seen him at both guard and tackle at various points during the fall. So what is it about his skill set that makes him potentially an option at tackle as well as inside?
He's done both, and I think the one thing, he's over 6'5", he's long, so he's got the size to play tackle, but he's put together. He kind of looks like a guard, but until you pull up on him and go, wow, I didn't know he was actually that tall. We had that conversation the other day. Like, what is he? He's 6'05", too. He's got the requisite arm length to play tackle. And to have guys that are position versatile, that aren't your starters, that can be guard tackles or center guards, is critical in terms of being able to do that. So you're always trying to find really your top 8. Who's your backup center, who's the backup guard, who's the backup tackle. If there's someone that can be a guard tackle, then that's obviously beneficial.
Back to quarterback now for 1 minute, and Chip Kelly was asked about Will Howard coming out of spring. He was not necessarily a finished product in terms of being ready to be the Ohio State starting quarterback then. So what did he have to improve to get from there to where he is now?
Yeah, just the specifics of the position, so really footwork at the quarterback spot when you're throwing the ball, your ability to set up, your ability to have a base, your ability to drive the football really starts from your feet up. And I think he worked extremely hard from that standpoint in terms of throwing the ball. I know Ryan had mentioned earlier in the season, he felt like there was more zip this camp than we were during the springtime. And then really the grasp of the offense, because I also think you can put zip on the football when you know where it's supposed to go. When you go back there and you're somewhat tentative with it, if they're not coming out of your hand as quick because your decision-making process isn't that. So really watching film, and Will's a huge film junkie. He's always in the quarterback room watching something, trying to study it, going through it, calling plays out, working on calling a play out of a huddle. How do I, because sometimes it can get really wordy, to practice all of those things, understanding that aspect of the game. But I think from a physical standpoint, really getting his feet going in the pocket, being able to put a little bit more zip on the ball, mechanically making sure that kinesthetic chain is all working in one motion at the same time. And then just the grasp total of the offense of what we're doing and getting a really good feel of that. I feel really good about this. And then being able to communicate this package is, I'm still a little, all right, then let's grind on this one a little bit. How do you feel about quick game? I feel really good about that. All right, then let's move and find out what because we're teachers, and teachers is just really, education is the transportation of knowledge, but you can't transport that knowledge to an individual if you don't know what he knows. So he was really open with his feedback of, I feel really good about this. I think I need to work on this. So spending time with him and just getting a chance to visit with him on those things is, I think, really shown up from this camp.
And finally, a guy who has been a very big name player for Ohio State for the last couple of years, whose name has kind of slipped through the cracks in some way this fall. We're going to be talking about Emeka Egbuka. And yeah, everyone wants to talk about Jeremiah Smith, and yeah, we get it. And Carnell Tate making that second-year leap, and hey, Brandon is coming on real strong as that fourth receiver. Yeah, we get it. We understand. Don't sleep on Emeka Egbuka. And the team certainly is not. He was named a captain over the weekend. It was singled out for having a really, really big day during the Buckeyes' first scrimmage a couple weekends ago. So does Chip Kelly look at Emeka Egbuka and was he reminded of anyone he's had on teams before who's played in that slot position?
I think he's in a box on his own. A lot of the slot receivers that I've had in the past have been smaller, and been somewhat mismatches from that standpoint. But Mek's ability to go in and dig out linebackers, Mek's ability to carry the football, and then Mek's ability to get open and make really tough contested catches, I think is really what kind of sets him apart, because he can do everything in there. I think sometimes the prototypical slot receiver is that small, quick, get in and out of things, but it really affects you in the run game because you're trying to run the ball and he's an inside guy, and now all of a sudden he's at the point of attack, and all of a sudden he's kind of looking over his shoulder, hoping they don't run him over, where Mek isn't like that. Mek really can do a lot of things, and to have that versatility, I think, is is something that hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun with this fall, trying to put him around and put him in different positions and allow him to make plays, because he really is a playmaker.
We will be back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center a little later on Tuesday evening, talking to Ohio State tight ends coach Keenan Bailey and his tight ends, Ohio State safeties coach Matt Guerrieri and his safeties. Going to be a lot of interesting stuff to talk about in the final week of fall camp. Next week is officially game week in Columbus. That countdown we've been doing all year long, well, it is almost down to 0. We are very, very close to single digits, very close to double digits on the Michigan game. It is really, that season really almost here. And we hope you spend that whole season with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Kevin, Tony, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there to make you a smarter football fan, plus a really fun and active community on the Huddle Board, presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.